My nose hurts from the dog chewing it, and my butt hurts from my last trip to the dealer. Don't let that catch you either. So today I'm going to share a list of the worst to the best financial tips when you're buying your next car. You don't want to get hosed. You want to keep as much of that money in your pocket as you can. So let's get right to it. Leasing a car, number one, is the first thing that you should avoid at all costs. Yeah, it was always intended to be a moneymaker for lenders. Yeah, it also gives you certain tax write-offs if you're a business, but you can get a lot of those same tax write-offs if you're financing a car, or even if you're buying it flat out, you can still go through some depreciation of that asset and still gain some value out of it. Leasing a car has never been a win for anyone, because when you lease a car, you have to put a pile of money down, you make monthly payments, which is equivalent to renting a car, and at the end of it, if you actually like the car, you got to pay a whole ton more, absolutely spending almost the same value of the price again. So you're basically renting it and doubling down on the cost. It is never ending chaos, and you clearly will never get out of the loop. The only other way you can get out of that lease is buying another lease where you stay in the loop of constant rotation, rinse, lather, repeat, in which case, again, you just continue that process of feeding the beast, feeding that money into the lending institutions. And of course, the manufacturers love it too, because it generally keeps you in the same brand. You're done with said BMW, you move in, you look at the next one. They always give you priorities and give you opportunities on your next car. So there's incentives to continue the lease. There's a reason for that. They make money, you don't. The second biggest money waster is buying new cars and then trading them in regularly, which is what a lot of people do. They say, hey, I like to avoid a lot of problems. I don't want to deal with used car troubles. I also don't want to have to deal with mechanics constantly, because all I have to do is drop the car off, here's the keys, and the warranty will take care of it. But the unfortunate part is buying a new car and continually trading them in with the hope that the warranty covers you. All you do is get into a vicious cycle of paying, give it in, paying, give it in. And of course, every time you're buying that car, you're putting a deposit. So you're putting a deposit. It's very similar to what you're experiencing in a leasing environment. It's only slightly better because you're building a little bit of equity in there every time you own that car. But the unfortunate part is, especially when you're dealing with manufacturers in the European and specifically in the luxury car segments, you're seeing a really sharp depreciation. So there's very little value in that used car when you buy it new to after 3 years, 4 or 5 years. Say buy it, and then after 5 years you decide you want no more troubles, that by that time you've lost 50, 60, 70% of its original value, and that's all you've got left to trade up to your next one. So you're constantly losing money, and it's an uphill battle you'll never get out of. A third tip is actually buying a brand new car and then possibly driving it for 8, 9, 10 years. That's personally something that I've often liked to consider doing. The idea behind that is you're buying a new car. Sure, you're going to see all that sharp depreciation for the first 3 to 5 years is where you see most of that. But then after that, if it's a car that hasn't been causing you a lot of trouble, you continue owning it, and you don't have to spend a ton of money on it. If it's a reliable car, you know pretty quickly. Likely, if you plan to buy a car for 10 years, you've probably done your research, and you don't want to get yourself into a car that's going to cost you a lot of money for service and maintenance. And if it happens to be one of those brands, then you buy it, and then you just drive it basically till the wheels fall off. And that's a tip that a lot of people kind of live by. You know, they want to get into something and they just drive it till there's basically nothing left. I think that's a great idea for somebody who's maybe getting close to retirement, where they just finally get that new car as they enter retirement, and then as they retire, then of course they're unlimited income, and of course buying a new car after that is probably not in the cards. So you basically buy that car as you're entering retirement and then drive it till the cows come home. So that's one option. Although you do see that initial 3 to 5 year sharp depreciation, you do definitely going to feel the burn on the financial front. The next option is what I definitely do, and I've done this time and time again, and I love to rinse, lather, repeat. I've also become a great DIYer, and as a result, you can own cars for a long time, maintain them, keep them running, keep them going for a long period of time. But that really is buying a slightly used car, and the sweet spot is always that 2 to 3 year window. A lot of times you could get certified pre-owned vehicles. You can get a lot of warranty added on for a relatively small amount of money. A 3-year-old car often has less Ks on it, and often you can drive it for another 8 to 10 years. So buying that slightly used car, drive it for another 10 years, gets you into a vehicle that can likely last a long time. You don't take on the massive depreciation for that first 3 years or 2 or 3 years where you're likely going to see 30-40% of its loss in that first few years. You're going to skip that. You're going to go right to that next chapter, which means you're already at that 50-60 percentile range, and you're taking depreciation from that point. Now again, as I said, if you can do a little DIY yourself, you can even save even more money in that front. That's basically a motto I've lived by. Keep a relatively late model vehicle in your stable for a few years, drive it and enjoy it. Cars that would definitely qualify for this space would be vehicles late model Mazdas, late model Lexus, late model Toyotas, and even Hondas. But with some of the Hondas, be careful. Stick with the naturally aspirated. Try to stay away from the 1.5 liter four-cylinder engines. Some of those had some issues along the way. CVTs, prefer the manual transmission, but get yourself a good quality used car, and then you should be good to go for many, many years. The next tip is basically get yourself a used car, an older car, maybe a car that's 7 or 8, maybe even 10 years old. An older used car of a reputable manufacturer. Don't get a Chevy or a Chrysler or Jeep product. Get yourself an older Honda or Toyota product. Generally, those are well made. They hold and they can run 2 or 3 or 400,000 miles. So get yourself an older car like that that's way out of the depreciation curve and pay for it cash. Buy it cash so you know nothing to the bank. You don't see absolutely any of the interest rate charges. You're not borrowing from the bank or any of the other lending institutions, and it's a huge win. You also avoid most of that depreciation because you're buying an older one, and you just run it till the wheels fall right off. Not literally, you want to make sure the wheels stay on. That's probably the most critical part. That's something I've lived by as well. And get past the pride, get past the Joneses. But that's just one of those things. If you want to drive a car A to B and use it till there's nothing left, that's a great option financially. Will keep you on the high side of that broke line. And the last one is literally buy yourself an asset that can send cash flow to other opportunities for investment in other vehicles, for example. So I'll give you an example. A rental property might transfer some money. So get yourself maybe a fourplex, maybe a small walk-up apartment, possibly even just a house. Get yourself a property or something that you can invest that money in. Let that cash flow, and as you build a little bit of a small pocket and wealth, you can take that money then that's developing cash flow and put that right into a new or used vehicle, in which case then you're driving it essentially for free. That continues cash flowing your property or your investment. Maybe it's a small business that you can cash flow across, and you're able to continue that cash flow process even once that car has been purchased and has long been paid off. That's the ultimate in win if you're thinking it from a dollars and cents and primary investment perspective. Thanks, everyone. Hey, I hope you all enjoyed these quick tips. And as well, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm all about hitting it straight to the point, get it to you the greatest tips that are going to save you money, get you the best buy, and avoid the biggest headaches in the automotive industry. Hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. We'll see you then.